Jason Fisher, El Presidente of Exodus Stratagem Records. Sir, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, man. It's been a great day. So, I mean, obviously, we're doing a lot of stuff this year, and I'm glad to be here to talk about some of it.
Man, you guys are consistently busy. I see all the press releases, all the bands. I mean, what are you the most excited for this coming year?
Wow. I mean, I'm excited for a lot of things. I mean, obviously, we had some disappointments coming to the year as well, which I think we all know and understand. But I think one of the big excitement that we have is you know, we finally got you to come on board with us, and my God, that album art that Josh did, holy hell! The first time I saw that, that just freaking you know tingles up the arms and everything. So yeah, I mean, I think he hit it out of the park with that. So yeah, man, we're gonna work to make that some great. We'll figure out how to make the rest of the album artwork, but we'll do that.
Total.
Also, I think other things that we're super excited for this year, obviously, Chelsea from Vorath has her own band, Visitant, and that stuff is off the chain. We finally got it in a place where we're ready to start getting it ready for release as well.
Nice, man. And thank you for having me be a part of the family. I'm super proud to be a part of it. And thank you very much. And, Josh did a really good job on that album artwork. And I remember when I was filling in for guitar for Vorath, and we were talking back and forth about, what my concept was and this and that. And finally, he got around to having a chance to do it because he was super busy too. And man, he did such a great job. Like you said, we'll have to figure something else out for the rest of it. But Josh was a great guy, and he's missed by a lot of people. And Visitant's a
Oh,
great band, and Chelsea's a great vocalist, and I'm a fan of hers, and so that's really good stuff, man. I mean,
yeah.
all around.
And I suppose I should take this opportunity to say that yes, there is another Borath album coming. It's going to be hard for us to get done, but there's a lot of people who are coming together to help us get it to fruition because Josh was prolific and we have most of the album, so we're gonna get it done. It's just gonna be a bit of a challenge. So I don't know if it's gonna get done in 2025. I suspect that really honestly 2026 is the framework that it's gonna come to fruition. But with that, we also are trying to do a tribute album to Josh, right? And so so obviously the second album, if you know, the first album was volume one, the second album will be volume two, the tribute album will be volume three.
Wow. Wow, yeah, and like Josh was such a multi-talented guy. Not only was he an awesome drummer, he wrote some really good stories too. And I remember him telling me about the lore and like you were saying, like volume one, volume two, and then volume three. Like just the depth of that guy was amazing, and it's awe-inspiring. And I'm certainly proud to be a part of contributing to that a tribute album. And it's going to be a good time. And and for a good cause too. And it's nice to see his legacy live on. And you
Yeah,
guys have been huge about that kind of stuff. And it's
yeah,
it's something about you guys as people as well as your business too.
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, yeah, just to close the circle on the volume three for Vorath, which I know a lot of people are already working on tracks, and we've got one. So before the end of the year, the record label, we're going to put our track out as a single, just as a teaser, and that'll be when we release the full press release that we're doing the tribute album. It'll be later this year, but the three of us that are the core members of the record label, we just sat down and we took a track and we've kind of we've made it fit Josh's world, right? So it's going to be fun. It's going to be super fun. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to come out. So there'll be a formal announcement and a call for input from other bands as well. We've already got some input from other people, and obviously the former members of Vorath also have, free input anytime they want.
That's fantastic, man. And like I said, such a worthy cause. And let's talk about your musical journey because you're also a musician, and I think that really lends itself and gives some eyesight and perspective into being in owning a record label and managing it. So, tell me
Yeah.
about your musical journey, Jason. What was that like?
Oh my goodness. So, I mean, I guess we have to go way back. We'll set the Wayback Machine for the 1980s, and we'll start talking about some of that stuff. So, originally I was a vocalist, and I actually was I got hired on at Disney, and I was a singer at Disney in California, there in Anaheim. So
No kidding.
I worked at a place that doesn't exist anymore because Radiator Springs is on top of it. But
Now I got to ask, what did you sing? Like, what character did you play? Like, what was that
it was
all
not
about?
we were not a formal character. We did a specific show in Videopolis, which meant that we were very 50s oriented, 50s, 60s oriented tunes, and it was definitely a time period thing at Disney. So yeah, but it was a fun time. It was super
Well,
cool.
hey, I guess you were in the tunnel singing "It's a Small World" after all. So I mean, things could have
Thank
been
God.
worse.
Yes. But yeah, there were a lot of discoveries, a lot of learning points along the way. Yeah, so eventually, while I was there at Disney, I decided that I actually wanted to eat something and not live with 5 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I joined the Army, and 26 years later, it kicked me out in North Carolina. And so then we were playing in a band. We started a band while I was still in. And then when I retired, we were all like, well, this band's never going to get signed by a record label. Why don't we start our own? And we did the great, special forces, determination, because that's where I wound up in the Army. But, we did the great special forces determination. How hard can it be? We'll just figure it out. And yeah, I will tell you that none of the people that I started the record label with are in the record label today.
Wow.
Because it turned out to be a lot of work, and it turned out to be a lot of difficulty. I mean, we had a band. That band has since, scattered to the winds. The record label happened. Yeah, it fractured a lot of relationships, but then I was just like, you know what? After everything kind of fell apart, I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick up the pieces and we're just going to keep walking forward. And then I found some other people that were passionate about it. We put the core of the record label back together, put some money together, and then we just started finding guys and moving forward and just saying, okay, I'm not going to be a band on the record label, but I'm going to figure out what a record label really does. And, this was all about, 2014 is when we started the record label. 2016 is probably about 2016 or 2017 is about when it kind of hit its freaking first stumbling blocks, and then by about 2020, we had finally figured out what we were supposed to do and had started to recruit other people. We went through a whole bunch of time learning what not to do. So if anybody ever wants to know what not to do starting a record label, I have volumes of things you should never do.
Well, now I got to ask. Oh, sorry,
yeah.
excuse me. Now I got to ask, what is one thing that you've learned? What's a bit of information you could pass on to the rest of us to make our lives more painful?
If you ever wanted to start a record label and you were going to start signing bands, make sure the band is really a band.
That's kind of stuff you take for granted, but I get it, man. Like
make sure it's not just a studio recording, but these guys can actually do what they say they can do, right? Because on the other side of it, when you start asking guys, okay, are you going to go support this release? And they're like, no, man, we're just a studio band. Well, then why did we sign you to begin with? Because you're not going to do anything for me.
Exactly. Yeah, if they're not willing to go out on the road or, promote the record, then, or the recording or whatever medium you want to call it, man, it's just kind of like, what's the point? Like being able to do something in your bedroom is really cool, but doing it in front of people and for reals is a whole other ball game.
Well, and so I will say, as being a former, guy and as a combat veteran and everything, I always thought that playing live in front of people was a great adrenaline rush replacement for the same thing, because there's you can't fail in front of people, right? You can make mistakes, but you don't fail,
right?
And it's a team effort. Everybody's out there rowing together, so one of you can screw shit up, but the rest of you can't. To cover for the other guy who just freaking lost his finger off the side of the fretboard or whatever,
right?
Or the singer who got what verse he was in, and he's suddenly singing the next verse, and you're like, okay, well, we'll figure this one out.
Exactly. It's like you got to pay attention to yourself and everything going happening around you. And it's, I guess, And I guess, I played a few gigs where, I mean, I've never been shot at or anything like that. So I don't want to equate it to that. But like, there's times where you got to, like you can't fail, you make a mistake and you just kind of keep smiling and moving forward. I mean, the stakes are a lot lower. I mean, comparatively, don't get me wrong,
Oh
but
yeah,
like,
he's
I
gonna
get,
die,
I get the
right? So
idea
let's
of
get that straight. Nobody dies playing
it.
live music, right? But you still feel the same thing. So I will tell you, having been there, you feel the same thing, right? It
Oh
it
yeah.
gets it gets the adrenaline pumping, and but it also, you build that sense of live humor as well. So like when something doesn't quite happen right, everybody starts looking at each other and everybody's like, yeah, no, I got that. I own that one. That one's
Right.
mine. you know?
Exactly. The Eye of Sauron just kind of looks around and everybody, and you just kind of like,
Yeah.
give them the nod and the, yeah, that's
Yeah.
on me. And it happens
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, it's
But
fun. So I think live performance, one of the funnest things to ever do. I think it's super great.
yeah, it's super cool too. And being able to go out there and like, and connect with people and that exchange of energy. I mean, not to sound cliche, but it's a real thing, man. You know what I mean? And that's what kind of keeps this whole train moving.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time that I played, we played the band Overlord SR, we played a live show in Chicago at Reggie's for Legions of Metal. And the first time those guys are all singing back to us, and somebody out in the crowd just shouts out, "I listen to you guys every morning." And the one of the two guitarists from the band just was like, "I'm sorry." I was like, I was like, Craig, don't say that.
Yeah, man, you got to respect your audience. I mean, they're taking the time to listen to your music. You don't want to, piss on them or whatever. And I think playing metal, like, all of us are super appreciative of anyone that, listens to our music or finds it, finds value in it. And that's, art's something, in my opinion, that's valuable. There's a complete, any medium you want it in, regardless of its genre or, painting, drawing, whatever, a banana duct taped to a wall somewhere sold for like $5 million. I don't understand the what makes it great, but somebody else did. And that's the thing, is art's subject to interpretation. And
Yeah,
that's just something I found.
yeah. You always have to just appreciate things because you don't understand what it means to somebody else, right? And so from the record label, that's always been our perspective. Look, give us the lyrics, interpret it, but don't bind your fans to that they have to see it the same way you do. I got it. The song means what you want it to mean, but let it mean whatever it means to everybody else. So when somebody comes up to you and says, "Man, this song helped me through the worst time in my life," and if to you that song was like about the end of a relationship or something, well, don't worry about it. It means something else to that guy, and just embrace it, and just tell them, "Hey, man, I'm glad it connected with you, and help me out."
Oh, totally. And that's the great thing about music too, is like there's songs like that could be about like the end of a relationship, or even, take your pick, but whatever meaning people get out of it's their own. And that's what makes music so awesome, is that,
Right.
it means something to so many different people. And that's why it's important that like human beings still create it, not left to AI. And that's another question I was going to ask you, is a part of, as a musician and as a record label guy, what do you feel about AI in the music business?
Oh my goodness. So uh I'm not a big fan of AI in the music overall, right? So I still feel that music is a human expression, and I don't want a machine telling me what it sounds like. I also can tell almost immediately when somebody has used AI to accentuate their music because it just has a particular tone to it that is not human to it. So, but I still think also for some of those bands that are, guys that are in their late 70s moving on, maybe they need some help. And I'm okay with that too. I'm not complaining about, the Rolling Stones using a little bit of AI to make their music work. I love the fact that they were willing to put out an album, at that point. So I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And I also think that it impinges on intellectual property issues. So that we're gonna come to a point where it's gonna become difficult, down the line of figuring out, what is real and what's not. Right now, it's not there because it's pretty obvious when there's a lot of AI involved. But we'll get to the point that it will be a lot harder as these AI engines learn.
Exactly, and I feel the same way, like, you could tell when something's not human, like, and I'm all for, people embracing technology to a certain degree, except for, like, if it's a crutch for a live performance or, things they can't play, stuff like that. Because integrity is part of music, in my opinion, and art. But I agree with you, like, it's a slippery slope because it's like once in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but once, like, who owns this intellectual property? Is it the person that wrote the algorithm? Is it the person that typed the keywords into the search, like, or the creation field, or whatever you want to call it? Like, I want a song to sound like the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin. All of a sudden, who owns that property? Because just to write words down, and I've seen it, and I think that people use it to, write their lyrics too. I,
Oof.
and that's something that's like, I mean, I don't think I'm some great lyricist, but I take the time to write my own lyrics, and I would. That's what makes it emotive, not just like words that fit together with the syllables will fit the counts or whatever, like a computer may do.
Sure. No, I think you just hit a key point right there, is because music is still storytelling, right? I
Yeah,
don't want a machine telling me a story. I want a human being who had some emotional experience in that framework to tell me a story, right? So that changes how it works. That changes the syntax. It changes all of that stuff. So I think there's yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a yeah. It's a music is a human experience, not a machine experience.
right, exactly. And the bottom line is too is like a machine still, like, AI is still using like what people have done as a reference point. That's the basis. So initially, I guess, it's you can't remove humans out of it, and that's a good thing. And it's like the album art, like people's album covers and stuff like that were done with AI. I don't think it looks bad. Like, I don't think it's like a detriment to anybody. And I understand the idea that it's taking work potentially away from other people and stuff like that, real artists and stuff. But I think if it's done tastefully, it looks pretty cool. And how do you feel about AI album covers?
AI album art and like single art. So now that we're in the era of you can't have a single that has the same art as an album, I think AI plays a tiny bit of a role. And we've had to at times as a record label go in and use a tiny bit of that, because what the artist submits to us as the art that they paid for from an artist isn't sufficient or isn't big enough to fit the space that we need it to fit. And so we've used AI a couple of times to extrapolate and then have a real artist go back in and fix it to get rid of the fifth finger and the or the sixth finger and all the other goofy crap that comes out of AI. You know, and
Totally.
so going in and doing all of that stuff. But so I think there's logical use in a simple way to extrapolate, to make something fit a space that you need it to fit. But as far as creating something from scratch with AI and just telling them, giving it a framework of, I want a crowd collection facing left that has four people facing to the right that are hanging a person from a gallows looking this way, and then suddenly it just produces the image for you. I'm probably not as happy with that.
Yeah, that's
And
kind of
I
cheese.
would probably ask the band, how did you generate this image if they presented it to me?
Right. And I guess that says something too about the your guys' integrity. Like, you guys support the artists, all about the music, all about the organic way, all about doing it right. And did that philosophy come along with some lessons learned, as like you were talking about?
No, I think it started from the very beginning. I think we started from the very beginning because we always wanted to credit everybody along the way. So before it was a requirement to give everybody credit on an album, we started doing that. So from like our very first recording, we had everybody who was involved into things, soup to nuts, studio engineers, mixing artists, mastering artists, album art guys, everything is credited on our albums. And we still do that today. So we always want to have the maximum amount of information. We want to put it out because, I was a kid that I used to always love looking at an album and read the date, the details on the back that says, recorded at, whatever, Studio B in freaking, Anaheim, California, and all the details, and then mastered at Sound City, and then all the things that come with it, and just be able to understand, oh, this is the guy who does this. This is the guy. So then, which is why we have as a record label, we have a very deep catalog of guys we like to go to master stuff. So, and even mix things if a band comes to us and asks us to help them mix stuff. So we have a bunch of guys that we have contact with just because we like to. If there's a sound somebody's looking for, I want to be able to link them up with the guy who can make that sound.
Man, that's really, really cool. And like, like you're talking like, Sound City and stuff, like all those legendary engineers. And like, I remember being a kid too, and like reading the liner notes and reading the lyrics and knowing what these guys used, where they recorded it, who did what, you know what I mean? Just beyond the people in the band. And I think that's something that, like in the record industry now, maybe the music industry, that's something that's missing. Like that experience of like going to a record store. Cause I caught the very tail end of that whole thing where I wish I would have been able to experience that, where you walk into a record store and buy something because the album cover is awesome. You know what I mean? Like that's something we don't have anymore. And it's kind of a shame.
Yeah. But also I think that we have social media allows us to share a whole lot more. So really cool album art will generate people going and doing clicks on things, right? But that music better live up to that image. So, don't outsell yourself either, right? By spending some extra money to get a really cool album art image. But there's I've having grown up in the 70s and 80s and everything, and gone to record stores and all that stuff. Yeah, I understand. Everybody missed the whole. Nobody got to go to Capitol Records and all that other stuff. Tower Records, all that stuff was long gone. But still, I think it still exists, but it exists in that social media framework. And when you drop a really cool bit of album art and you have that awesome single that ties straight into all that stuff, I think that the same coolness that we felt when I was a kid is still there. So when the stuff drops and, just because it's coming out on social media doesn't detract from the fact that it's still fucking cool album art. Excuse my French.
It's all good, man. Say what you feel and how you say it, and I agree with you, dude. And that's a really good perspective, because I guess it still is there, because I guess as consumers, as people that listen to music, we have to be willing to put ourselves out there too, in a sense of embracing stuff like that. Maybe it's not the same experience as it was, and the mystique's not the same, but discovering good music is still the same across the board. And I was going to ask you a question: is if you could pick your top 3 albums of all time, what would they be?
Oh my God. So this is probably going to scare a lot of people, because in general we're a extreme metal label, right? So, but if you wanted to ask me what my 3 favorite albums were, God dang. So I'm a prog metal nerd, really, at the core. So it's probably going to be like, Yes, the Yes album, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, freaking gosh darn, where else do I go?
Man, just choose a Rush album.
Yeah, I mean, well, humorously, I'm not as big a Rush fan.
Really? That's interesting, man. Like, I like progressive metal, progressive music in general, but that's interesting, because that's like the go-to all the time. But dropping a Yes album's pretty awesome, or even a ELP or record too. Those are pretty sick too. Those guys are all great musicians.
Yeah, I mean, like Brain Salad Surgery from Emerson, Lake and Palmer was probably the most impactful album ever in my life.
Nice.
Which made me want to be a bass player, made me want to sing, made me want to do all that stuff. So, and it's a band that's a keyboard player, a bass player, and a drummer. So even more crazy.
Oh, totally, man. And
if somebody today were to send us a demo that was keyboards, bass, and drums, I don't know what we would do, because we would be hard pressed to say that we wanted to produce that.
Right.
It would have to be really damn good.
Well, dude, like, that bass line to round.
But they were.
Totally, man. Oh yeah, like ELP. I can't remember the first time I heard their music, but Greg Lake,
Yeah.
he was a keyboard player, right?
No, Greg Lake was the bass player and vocalist.
That's right. My bad. Sorry, I
He
misspoke.
played
That happens a
well.
lot.
So if you ever hear anything on Emerson, Lake and Palmer that has guitar in it too, he played all the guitar parts too. So there is some
Okay.
lead guitar in there on a couple of tracks.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man, and, you know, it can't be metal all the time, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes I'll listen to, you know, the I don't know, like, what the stuff my kids listen to, and sometimes it's tough to bear with, but or deal with, but, you know, other times it's not so bad, so you can't be brutal all the time, you know, it's just like eating steak, and we love it, but you can't do it, you know, every single day.
No, I agree with you. I mean, music has to be a balance, and nobody. This is the one thing that I always tell bands when they start getting upset that oh, this other band they're taking our fans away. I was like, look, hold on a second. How many bands do you listen to on any given day? When you listen to music, do you just listen to one band's music? No, of course you don't. You listen to a lot of things that tickle your brain in a way that you need it to be addressed, right? So we listen to a lot of different things. So don't ever feel that somebody's taken a fan base away from you. They're not. They're just being successful and appealing to people in a way that maybe you're not, but that's okay because you tickle a different nerve on different people. So don't ever think that somebody's taken a fan base away from you right now because it's not true. It's not
Uh,
true at all.
I agree with that too because you know, like, when I started listening to heavy metal when I was a kid, I heard Metallica, of course, right? And that led me to, like, Megadeth and then Slayer and then Testament, you know? So it's kinda like maybe it's the same quote unquote genre, but like you said, different nerves. And you know, the more people that listen to this kind of music in general is good for everybody. You know what I
No,
mean?
absolutely. Yeah, and nobody just likes one type of music either. So you should never be upset with somebody because oh my God, they were listening to Taylor Swift today. Well, who cares? Taylor Swift's done some great songs. She's made a
Can't
hell
fuck
of
with that.
I have. So
Oh,
don't.
totally. And then anybody that hates on her is a fool because she's
Yeah,
obviously doing something right. You know what I mean? There's something to be learned there. So more power to her. And, you
oh,
know, maybe,
absolutely.
you know,
And I think the faster that in the extreme metal community we all realize we're all rowing the same direction, that the better everything is for everyone.
oh,
Right?
absolutely.
We're not in competition with each other. We're just sharing different versions of the same story.
That is true. You know what I mean? Because especially, like, I mean, any genre of music, you know, like pop music sounds the same and metal sounds the same, country sounds the same, but it's true. I mean, there's some, you know, we're all derivative of something. And yeah,
Well,
we're just, you know, borrowing notes, man. That's all we're doing.
yeah. I mean, nobody would ever use a trope if a trope didn't work, right? So a
Exactly.
trope is a trope for a reason, right? Because it connects with people. And it has to be there. Otherwise, you'll never connect with anybody. Or you'll be freeform jazz that nobody loves.
That's just
Yeah.
music for nerds. That's all that
But
is. But
it's,
we love it.
well, yeah, I think my second wife, we went to go see a jazz show. This was this was up in Washington D.C. in like 2008, and she looked over to me and said, "Hey, can we leave now? I'm tired of watching these guys masturbate on stage for me." They're getting off on it, but I am getting nothing out of this.
It's a good mix to me. I mean, as somebody that's a music nerd, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I don't, you know, sit there and ooh and ah, you know, I do. And I don't sit there like this the whole time, my arms crossed, going, they fucked up, you know, they missed a note. Oh, ha ha ha, neener, neener, neener. I mean, I try not to do that kind of stuff, but I'm a music nerd, so I like it. But like you said, man, a lot of stuff too is like once you hear one song, like it's like you've heard them all by somebody. Like even bands I've toured with, I find like as soon as I hear their first, not all everybody's this way, not all bands, but some of them it's like, or you know, I heard the first song, it's the same as the last one, and there's, you know, it gets kind of monotonous.
Sure, I mean, there's definitely some framework to that. People get too formulaic, and creativity is the spice of it. So we always try to push our artists to hey, you did this the last time, let's do something new. Feel free to send us something different. you know while we love what you did the last time, to capture the next group of fans, you got to do something a little bit different. So we'll always push guys to expand their framework, right? So we don't want guys to just get stuck in one framework of sound.
Totally, man. And I think it's as a musician or as an artiste, like whatever that means, like we continually like try to broaden our horizons and grow. So being a part of something that's going to be you know, fostering that mindset and that mentality of growth is really huge because like I remember watching this old interview with Frank Zappa, and he said the music industry used to be really cool. You probably seen this one, like where he's like, it was cool because people that didn't know anything were in charge. But as soon as the people that, the arbiters of taste, they would take chances on things and,
Yeah.
and develop bands and invest in that. Maybe they didn't understand the music or they didn't understand what the hell was going on. But once those people were gone, then they got people in there that think that they know everything, that were like the arbiters of taste and like this is cool and this and that. And so it was kind of like diluted the music industry, and a lot of bands that probably were signed like ELP may not have had a chance now. You know what I mean? Like just because the record industry has changed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 1,000%. Well, the record industry has changed 3 times over since then, too, right? Because the big guys don't even know what they're doing right now. They're all just trying to scramble to figure out how they save their market share and how they can leech as much money off of it as they possibly can, and negotiate the best deal with all the streaming platforms that we as the smaller guys depend upon, right? So we're seeing that coming around again, where they're devaluing the number of streams and the value of streams, and it's just freaking painful. So I mean, we'll get there. There's been a few wins because I think we're starting to see some YouTube short wins and other stuff like that YouTube is agreeing to turn around and start paying faster, because
That's
YouTube is
cool.
notoriously bad about
Yeah.
paying, unless you were a content creator, right? But
Right.
if your music is used in a video, they were super slow about paying you for that video being in there, or that song being in the video. So I'm super glad that a lot of that stuff is coming around. I mean, Spotify, as much as it's the evil monster that it is, and they're the lowest paying streaming platform on the face of the planet, still, if you're not on Spotify, you're wrong, because it gets to the most people.
Right.
So, and then hopefully we'll be able to, at some point, negotiate around to get a better deal out of it. But again, as long as they're beholden to the bigger boys, we're all going to suffer for it, and we're just going to struggle through it. We're in it for the long term as a record label, right? So that's the way we look at it. And I know that all of our artists, and I know that I talked to every one of them, I know I talked to you about it, that this is a long-term game. You just have to be patient. You have to be willing to let it build. So, because it will.
Yeah.
And that's, I think we've finally gotten to the point, if we go back to, circle this whole story back around to where, EXSR started, and we didn't know how to promote anything. We didn't know what we had to do. We didn't know how to do all that stuff. And then eventually we started to build that network of people. And then, now we're at the point that we have like 4 PR companies that we work with, and we have a whole bunch of people so we've built that, the village to help us get releases to the point that they're getting a lot of traction. And I think this year we're going to see that EXSR releases are going to really start to hit home. So it's already started with with Sin of God, and so we're moving into some of that. So I mean, whew, what a great release that Sin of God releases. Anyway, but I think as we move forward, I think we've got the promotion engine that gets things out to the right people, and we've got enough companies involved to be able to get the right reach to the right places.
Yeah,
Because
man.
there's no one company that knows how to do it all themselves. So you can't just hitch your little red wagon to one person in the framework of things.
No, and it's overwhelming just as someone that knows that's just a musician, not so much as like running a label or anything like that, because there are so many moving parts. And once you start doing this at like trying to take it to a professional level in every aspect and sense of the word, it's like you said, there are so many different people involved. And the more people you have, the bigger your village is, the more traction you'll get, because you have more people out there to help you put stuff where it needs to be. And that is in itself extremely overwhelming. Imagine like you had to learn all this stuff, going through it. And just to try to be able to get a handle on, for some people, getting your music even online now is easier, but like, getting on Spotify playlists, doing all those sorts of things, actually promoting a record how it's supposed to be done. That's a lot of work, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then all the digital marketing and everything that you have to do, all of it. And of course, every time that you expand your circle, you're assuming more risk because somebody can absolutely hose you along the way, right? So it's all about good human interaction as well, because we're all real people in the end, and making sure that you know who it is that you're talking to. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that you always have to be willing to expand to get somebody who can do that next thing for you that you don't
Totally.
know stuff, and
Yeah, I
build
mean,
that volition, but also bring everybody together in understanding, right? So just from the artists to the management to the promoters to the booking agents to all that stuff. And that's the weird place that as the record label we sit, because we're the venture capitalists in the whole framework of it, right? We're the dudes who have the money, and everybody else is trying to get the money out of us. So it's oftentimes very hilarious to hear discussions and sidebar discussions and all sorts of other things. So we oftentimes have some entertaining internal conversations based on what do.
man, and I remember through my travels of, in the little that I do know, I learned about this thing called the social contract.
Mhm.
And that was an interesting perspective, because like you said, sometimes you don't know who you're talking to, you don't know what you're talking. In my case, I don't know what I'm talking about. So it's kind of like, you got to make sure you got your stuff together, and there's nothing wrong with going, I don't know.
No, absolutely. That is and here's how, because people often ask us, how do we deal with bands that don't inherently speak English, right? Like Sin of God, they're from Hungary, right?
Right.
Or like Sinnery, the guys from Israel, they're not native English speakers either. And so, how did you guys negotiate a deal? I was like, it took us a while because we had to be willing to sit down and say, do you understand what we just talked about? And
Right.
I will tell you, the synagogue guys, nicest human beings on the face of the planet, but they were the first guys to say, I have no idea what you just asked.
Totally.
And so we would have to write it down, send it over to them. They'd get it translated. They'd come back and be like, okay, now we get what you're asking us right now. Because
Well, you know,
there were a couple of times during the whole process is that I think either one of the promotion companies or we came back and said, I don't think you understand what's going on. And they came back and they wrote back, you're absolutely right. We have no idea what's going on.
well, man, and that's really cool because you once again, integrity, like you're like, making sure that they actually understand what, they're doing and what's happening, all these working parts before they sign, doing all this kind of stuff. That's really
Yeah.
cool, man, because not everybody's like that. And that says something about, that community fostering of goodwill, trusting people, knowing who to trust, and, setting an example. And that's really, really huge. And as someone that's, a part of your roster, a part of the team, the family, that's really cool because, that says something about the integrity and the work that you guys do, man. And that's something that I think that all of us can appreciate. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we try, I mean, we're not perfect either. Right. So, I mean,
Right.
we still make mistakes. There'll be hiccups along the way. I mean, again, we're the eternal middleman too, right? So we have to deal with the distribution companies. We have to deal with the production company that when we're talking about making physical albums, we're dealing with the pressing house if we're doing vinyl, the CD guys, everything along the way. So, I mean, and stuff just doesn't happen the way you want it to at times. And because we deal with some of the guys who do stuff for the big companies, sometimes we get bumped too. And then it's like, well, why isn't the CD ready on this day? I was like, look, man, it's not here yet. I can't ship something I don't have.
Right. Exactly. But that's a problem you want to have, that there's a demand, right? But like you said, sometimes
And
things happen.
I will say that as we've started to go forward, we've actually hit the point that I am distributing a lot more copies. So like for the Tiguan Kobach re-release in North America, the guys in the UK were asking, "Hey, can we get copies of the album?" I was like, "No, man, I have nothing right now. All of our distribution partners took up every album I produced. I'm going to produce more and I'll send them to you."
Wow,
Because
that's awesome.
every copy we produced to Canada, US, Mexico, and South America.
Damn, that's awesome, man.
Fucked them all up. I was like, I don't have anything to send you. I thought I would. I don't.
I'll email you an MP3.
Well, they have all that. So yeah, that's
No,
not.
just yeah.
But yeah, so it was just like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. So yeah, we've had to go back and produce some more copies. So we had more physical copies, which is a good problem to have. But it's super weird because who even has a CD player?
They don't even put them in cars anymore, man. Like they don't even have them in cars. New cars don't have them. It's like Bluetooth is taking over everything. But once again, I think that's cool. People still want the physical copies, especially
Well, I
vinyl,
think
even
so
sets too.
they've run into the world of impulse buys. So like at a live show, people just want to take something home with them, right? They want to have a physical memento of the event, regardless of whether they can do anything with it. Which is why vinyl is nice now too, right? So vinyl is taking the place, at least in the US, of CDs, but also there's a huge novelty of playing vinyl live too. So you got a whole bunch of kids that are now learning to play the vinyl, and it's just cool. So I love it. So I love the fact that we can do it. Vinyl is expensive, but we're still willing to do it when the situation is right. And don't worry, you'll get there.
I have no doubts, man. I have no doubts. And let me ask you a question, Jason. Do you think records actually sound better? Is that true in your opinion?
On vinyl, I think there's a perceived better tone off of it because I think the way most preamps on record players work make tones warmer. So people like it. So if you crank it, it's going to have a nice warm rounded sound, and it's not going to peak on you. So I think that like vinyl, and you can't have too much low end on records because you can only have it cut so deep.
There you go, man. I never thought of it that way, but I guess like a tube preamp is what it's going through. So it's going to have like some tonal characteristics that are like maybe not just some some sterile kind of thing. And like we already talked about your favorite albums, your top threes. But as a bass player, who is your favorite bass player, man? Who is somebody that you saw or heard that blew your mind?
Geezer Butler. Yeah. Hands down. I love his experimental feel, and I love the downward flick. He was the master of the downward flick. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Are you going to go see Sabbath when this last hurrah?
Oh God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it out for that one, but yeah, it's I just love his I love his experimental feel. I love that Sabbath was always on the cutting edge, really. Although people don't acknowledge it, they pushed boundaries. They were super boundary pushers.
Oh yeah, man. They're like one of the original metal bands, like maybe arguably not the first, maybe the first, whatever. But let me ask you another question. Sabbath with Ozzy or Sabbath with Dio?
While I like both, I think Dio is a totally separate thing. I like Ronnie James Dio, and I love what he has done in his career, but Sabbath is still Ozzy to me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, that's another hotly contested thing. I would have to agree with you because the first like Sabbath stuff I ever heard was with Ozzy, and then once I started to listen to Sabbath with Dio, it was like, whoa, it's completely different, like you said. And
I mean, Heaven and Hell was an amazing event as well. So when they did the whole Heaven and Hell sequence and everything, freaking awesome.
Dude, Mob rules.
Yeah, I mean, all that shit is amazing. So don't think that I don't like Ronnie James Dio. I'm just saying that Sabbath to me is Ozzy.
For sure, dude. And that's like I said, that's fair enough. Great music. And it's cool that they're gonna get Bill Ward back up there to play. I'm excited to like watch it on YouTube because I'm not gonna go shit. But like it'll be cool to see all that kind of stuff.
Freaking $12,000 to go see it. I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's like some of them Taylor Swift tickets were like $7,000-8,000. It's even more. It's just crazy that people would spend that much money, but especially in an arena. I mean, if you're my favorite shows are shows that are in smaller venues. Like those
I
are the cool
love,
ones.
yes, 100%. I love seeing, and I love seeing bigger bands in smaller venues. I think some of the coolest shows I've ever been to was like Clutch in a, well, I love Clutch at the 930 Club in DC, which is not big. I think it's a 750 person venue. So
Perfect.
what a great time to go see Clutch, right?
Well,
So
yeah.
they're a large scale band, right? And of course, I mean, I grew up in that era when they were huge and have just followed them continuously. So yeah. So if you wanted to have another band, if you want to talk about modern era bands that I really like, Clutch is definitely in there.
Yeah, I remember I got their first CD. I can't remember what it was, or maybe not their first one, but the first one I had. I can't remember what the hell it was called, but I was a fan of it too. It kind of had like a stoner kind of doom kind of vibe to it, like it was good stuff, man. And they're from the Midwest, aren't they? Or are they from the South down there?
Oh, they're from Maryland.
Maryland, that's right.
They're
Okay,
from
yeah.
Frederick, Maryland. Yeah.
That's not too far away from you guys, right?
No, not too far, but 6 hours north of us.
That's nothing when you're living in Wyoming, man, I tell you. But that's another great band. But freaking yeah, concert tickets super expensive. Smaller venues are always cooler, but like 700 caps really good. Because I've seen some bands too, like seeing Iron Maiden in a freaking arena is awesome.
Yeah,
I've
sure.
seen Judas Priest, but it's unless you have like a stage show with like Eddie coming out of the floor with his dudes on his hands, or dressed as a sphinx or something, it's kind of not worth it.
Yeah, sure. I can agree with that. I can see that. I mean, I think the Lamb of God stage show is freaking awesome, but it's even more awesome. Like, I think I saw Lamb of God in Charleston, South Carolina at the Ice Arena where their hockey team plays. And
Wow.
crap. So, I mean, there was only maybe, 16, 1,700 people there. What a great fucking show.
Totally.
And they were just like, I just remember that they were like, it's a little cold in here because we're, if you were on the floor, you were on the ice. They just
Right.
put a layer of boards over the top of the ice and put all the chairs out there for people to sit in. And they were like, hey, it's a little cold in here. Why don't you walk with us in hell? And then the whole stage just blows up with flames and
That's pretty
everything.
bad.
I was just like, oh my God, these guys they knew their audience. They knew where they were. They knew what was going on. What a great show.
No, and that's really cool too when they make it, like seeing bands like that big of bands, like they make it personal with the people in the audience and stuff like that. Like they're not out there just like punching the clock. And
Yep.
I mean, it's really cool because that's what I think is special about metal too, is people like it's a bigger than just something you like to listen to. It's like a way of life. It's a a lot of time it's like being a part of a team or belonging somewhere maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think that is the way that the metal underground has grown, right? You don't have to be a conformer. You just have to like a few other things, and nobody's going to throw you out for being a little bit different.
Exactly.
And that's the cool thing about metal.
Yeah, it's like they're
without being ridiculous.
exactly, and that's the one thing I say. Like, I get in this argument all the time with, or not argument, but debate. Well, be polite and kind. But it's like, dude, metal is the most inclusive form of music there is. We don't care what you look like. We don't care what your beliefs are. We don't care as long as you treat people decent. Come on in, man. Like everybody's welcome. It's not like some sort of lifestyle thing of like, you have to wear certain clothes or you can't. You know what I mean? Any other other stupid shit. Like it's just like be yourself, rock out.
Yeah. Come on in the mosh pit and pick the other guy up when he falls down. Yeah, oh, yeah. Don't be an asshole. I mean, that's rule number one. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, and if that's a simple philosophy to follow and it's easy to understand, it's like you said, going to shows, you see somebody go down. I remember listening to Slayer, Decade of Aggression, when I was a kid, and that to me, that's my favorite live album. I think it sounds fantastic.
Holy crap, that a great live album.
Oh, dude. I mean, I'm sure they were back and did some overdubs, but even if they did or didn't, whatever. But that to me is like everybody talks like live albums, like Kiss Alive. I think, in my opinion, for my era, that was probably the Kiss Alive of live albums.
Yeah. Well, I think it's better having being an individual who can cross both of those gaps, it's better than Kiss Alive. But Kiss Alive is still good for Kiss. Kiss is
Right.
its own pocket, and we can talk about Kiss in its own weirdness. But yes,
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
because
yeah,
but anyway, we'll leave that alone.
exactly. Totally, I get it. Jason, thank you for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful to be working with you guys. Thank you very much, dude. It means a lot, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys and kicking some ass, man.
Yeah, man, it's going to be great. We're going to do a lot of good things, and I hope that we can get the rest of your back catalog of music that the world still needs to hear out there. Because I'm honestly going to tell you, we were surprised when everything came in. When you sent the masters over, we're like, okay, step up and way better. I like it. We're super happy. So thank you very much, man.
Oh, no problem, dude. I'm glad that you guys dug it. And yeah, dude, sky's the limit. And we want, like I said, we want to go back and re-record some vocals on the older albums, some of those songs we have in our set now that we're playing live. And
Sure,
you
man.
know,
Willing to look at that too. 100%.
Awesome, Jason. Well, once again, dude, thank you for your time, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. And you know, once again, Exodus Stratagem Records, great people, great label, dude.
All right, man. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, sir. Take her easy.
Yep.